Hey there, this is Dennis Anyone with Dennis Hensley, a podcast about making things up and making things happen. I love talking to creative people. I think art and creativity make life worth living, make the tough times bearable, and so I like to lift people up that do that. So today my guests are Barry Joseph and Dennis Osborne. Now, Barry was on last week. He wrote a book called Matching Minds with Sondheim, which is all about Stephen Sondheim's love of puzzles and games. Well, I have a friend named Dennis Osborne who's a writer, very talented guy. We met many years ago in a musical theater workshop, of all things, in like 1986, I think. Wow. Okay, so we've been friends a long time. Dennis was friends also with Stephen Sondheim for many years, and I know that they used to play games. So when I knew that I was going to be doing this interview, I mentioned to Dennis that there's this book coming out about Sondheim's love of games, and I'm doing the interview on such a day. If you want to pop in the Zoom and share some memories of playing games with Stephen Sondheim, I think that would be awesome. But it's up to you, you know, because I know Dennis hasn't talked a lot publicly about his friendship with Stephen Sondheim. I know there have been biographers and stuff that have reached out to him, and for whatever reason, I don't think he ever really spoke that much about him. So he agreed to pop in, and what ended up happening was so kind of special and magic that I decided to make it its own podcast. So this was the second part of my conversation with Barry, where Dennis Osborne joined the Zoom, and we talk about Stephen Sondheim and games and friendship. So I think it's really special, and I was kind of very grateful to witness it and be part of it. So before we get to that, though, I want to get a few plugs in. My party game search party, we are trying to get 150 orders by November 15th to make the printing happen, to pull it all together. So if you want to pre-order it, you'll end up getting a wonderful game. You go to youdon'tknowmylife.com/search party. Right now we're at about 85, I think. And so we're on our way. Yeah, I worked on it with my friend Jeb Havens, who we created You Don't Know My Life together. This is like our follow-up. It's a fun game where you use your phone to find pictures on the internet to go with certain prompts. So it's kind of the best time you can have on your phone. Who says your phone has to keep you separate from people? Maybe it can bring you together. So go to youdon'tknowmylife.com/search party. Pre-order that game. It would mean a lot to me, and it would help me make it happen. Because when the year started out, I was like, is this the right year to try to bring a party game into the world? But you know what? Yeah, why not? Beats doom scrolling, so let's go for it. We're going for it. So there we are. The other thing you can do is you can become a subscriber to my Substack/Patreon. It's the same content on both. I just know that some people prefer one platform over the other. It's called Dennis Hensley's Happy and Gay. And I talk about some of the same things I do on this podcast. I include some observation deck questions, some kind of movie wrap-ups, and not really reviews, because I don't like to review things in the way a reviewer would, but I talk about shows and things that I've gone to. But I end every episode with a conversation about happiness and tools that I have found that help make me feel happier. Some of the things that the science shows. It's just a topic I'm really interested in. So you can become a subscriber to that for $5 a month at Patreon or Substack. Search Dennis Hensley's Happy and Gay. And if you don't want to pay right now, go ahead and subscribe, because I occasionally drop free content on there that anyone can enjoy. So thank you for that. My website is DennisAnyone.net. You can leave a tip there for my virtual tip jar if you want. There's a thing there called Buy Me a Coffee. And finally, if you want to become a subscriber to DNR Studios, you'll get my episodes 2 days early, and you get all these other great shows. So go to dnrstudios.com to learn about that. All right, enough of the plugs. Here now is the conversation between me and Barry Joseph and Dennis Osborne. We've just had a special guest pop up in the Zoom, Dennis Osborne. He's a good friend of mine. Welcome, Dennis.
Thank you for calling me a special guest. That's the first time that's ever happened to me before.
You're a total special guest, and you were a friend of Mr. Sondheim's, and you played a lot of different kind of games with him, but video games were a big thing. So Barry hasn't met you yet before. I feel like a magician. You have never met each other, so Dennis, talk about...
I have never seen you before, Dennis.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
You can take that on as a vow. Me too. Over my heart. Nice to meet you, Barry.
Dennis Osborne, talk to me about playing video games with Stephen Sondheim. And Barry, if you have questions for Dennis as it pops up, or like, I never knew that, or I learned that, or what about this? Feel free to pipe in. So, Dennis, talk to me about playing games with Stephen Sondheim.
It started in the 80s with the Cliff Johnson games. which Barry, I'm sure, knows about.
Yes, indeed.
And,
so what was the format? They were like CD-ROM games or like video? Like
it's a Macintosh, right, Dennis?
Yes, Macintosh games. Very primitive, little puzzle games. The first one, I believe, was at the Carnival. And so every ride had a little word or number puzzle that you would have to figure out before you would get on that ride until you finished it. And then at the end, they all sort of coagulated into a major puzzle, all the puzzles you just did. And that, of course, Steve loved that. Then he did A Fool's Errand. Cliff Johnson did A Fool's Errand. And that's when Steve and Cliff got in touch with each other because there were some things about the game that Steve had questions about. And so he was helping him fix certain puzzles and stuff. But Steve loved Fool's Errand. And then 3 and 3 followed that. I still have these on my computer, actually.
Nice.
I have an old Mac that when I'm stressed out, I will go to this Mac and pull those games up and play them because they calm me down and get me able to handle all the stuff that's happening. But it was Cliff Johnson that really. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Barry.
No, please. I just wanted to ask you a question, Dennis. 2. 1, just to clarify, I think it was called The Fool's Errand. And
yeah.
And just for anyone who's going to Google it, and I'm curious if he ever discussed with you how he ended up in the credits for 3 of 3 being thanked.
Well, because then Cliff started sending him his ideas for 3 and 3. And Steve would give him suggestions and say, this puzzle would work better this way. He would give him little suggestions. And that's how he ended up in the credits of 3 and 3.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I show a photo of those credits in the book because seeing Stephen Sondheim's name in a video game in the credits blows my mind.
Yeah.
He's playtesting video games in the late 80s.
Yeah.
And to me, it was completely logical because they were always talking about puzzles and things like that. And then Cliff did another one after 3 and 3. He ventured into it. Then he got hired to do bigger games, but it didn't work out. He was very unhappy there. So he started not a remake, but a part 2 of The Fool's Errand that he was in the middle of. And that's when I was in contact with him because Steve got us in contact. And then the trail goes cold after that. I'm not sure if he's doing games anymore or.
So let me ask you, Dennis. So Stephen Sondheim played, I think, his first digital games with the Atari when they came out in the late 70s. And then he got a Macintosh. He actually got a Macintosh because Apple sent him one for thanks for letting him use his name in some promotional materials. So by the late 80s, he was playing games like The Fool's Errand. But then in the early 90s, he graduated, as many of us did, to CD-ROMs, playing Myst. And
there was one in between there that's not in your book, actually.
Tell me.
I was surprised, called OXYD, OXYD by Dongleware, a German company. And that he was obsessed with. He was absolutely obsessed with. And they kept coming out with more and more ornate puzzles and larger games. And he would have me, fly out there because he would get stuck in something. And he would say, you have to sit here and help me through this, talk me through this.
So you would literally fly from LA to New York to help him
all the time. Yeah. All the time. Because he'd get stuck in puzzles. Well, then he realized what you can do is he would send me a copy of the game and send his code to what level he was at so that I could go through, play that level, fix it so that he passed it and then send it back to him so that he could go on to the next level after that. So when he found out that you could do things like that online, that changed a lot too.
Amazing.
So it saved him a lot of money in airline fare, that's for sure.
Dennis, I have a surprise for you related to OXYD, but before the surprise, I'm really curious to know, sitting with Stephen Sondheim, playing a puzzle game with him, trying to help him solve it, what did that teach you about Stephen Sondheim, about his personality, about how his mind worked?
What did it teach me about his personality? He was a kid. It felt like he was just a neighborhood kid, just somebody that that just loved games. He had an incredible sense of humor. He was incredibly generous. He would get very frustrated, with games when he couldn't figure something out. Any ambitious kid would, he loved solving puzzles. He loved solving problems. And that was a big addiction for him. Big addiction.
So the video...
And we would just sit.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just saying we would just sit for days on end. I mean, I used to go up, when I was living in New York, I would go up there on Friday night, and then we would play all night Friday, all day Saturday, all day into Sunday until the last bus back into New York. Sometimes we'd play through Sunday night, and I'd have to catch the bus early to get back in, but we would just sit there and play OXYD all weekend long.
Is in Connecticut you're talking about?
Yeah, the Roxbury House. There was a little room. We just called it the game room. In fact, I said, you realize when I die, I'm going to haunt this room. So if you see chairs and stuff moving around, just tell me to get the hell out. But I spent so much of my life back then in that room, that little cubbyhole of a room. And the shelves all had games. It was all video games, computer games. That's where the computer was in that room.
Amazing. Are you ready for your surprise?
I am.
Yeah,
So
surprise.
it needs a little bit of context. So just before you came on, Dennis O., I was talking with Dennis H. about Stephen Sondheim in Games Magazine. We were talking about his profile in January 1983. But what we had not talked about is that Stephen Sondheim wasn't just in Games Magazine. Games Magazine was in Stephen Sondheim's home. From 1977, when the first issue came out, until he passed away, he looked at every single issue.
Mm-hmm.
He curated every issue, and he organized them on his shelf.
Yeah, I know.
And all of those issues were sold at auction last year at the Doyle auction. And a puzzle designer from Games Magazine named Andrew Parr, who lives in Canada, acquired them. And I helped out Andrew by picking them up for him, because I live in New York, and holding on to them just long enough to look through them all. And what I was looking through, in part, was to see which were the games, puzzles, and books that he circled because he was interested in them. Because as I'm sure you know, at the end of every year, Games Magazine would do its 100 best.
Yeah.
And so you would see games like The Fool's Errand, and you can see what he circled.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I heard, because Dennis H. told me we might be talking about OXYD, I contacted Andrew and said, do you have Sondheim's issue? Do you have an issue that shows whether OXYD was reviewed and if Sondheim circled it? So I have a video I'm going to show with some good audio.
Okay.
Oh my gosh, this is really exciting. Oh my gosh. Okay. Yes, I'm going to allow it. Of course I'm going to allow it.
Let me control the screen.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm going to say share sound.
Yeah.
Share. Okay, give me one moment.
While you're doing that,
Andrew's voice.
Oh, okay. While you're doing that, I just want to confirm with both of you guys. These computer games were immersive. They would take days, right? It's not like, oh, let's do this for a couple of hours, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
different levels.
The beginning of them too.
Yeah.
And there weren't any sheets or websites to go to for answers. You were just on your own.
Yeah.
Pre-internet, right, Dennis O?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you could spend a whole weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how he would fly me out there, because he had no other alternative to get through these games.
Yeah.
And that's what we started seeing on, computer-based games in the 1980s, games that had stories and narratives and puzzles to solve and would take a long time to solve. And often you needed a community of people or a book you could buy with hints and clues to get to the end, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm showing you both right now is the beginning of the video. It's showing the cover of Games Magazine from December 1983. And the voice you're going to hear is Andrew Parr.
Okay.
This is so exciting.
December 1993, Games Magazine, Games 100. I started looking from the beginning, and I didn't notice any marks in the entire magazine until we get to the Games 100.
As the game set?
Off. Looks like one card game.
The seventh guest.
He was interested in a few games, and then maybe he got them and X'd them off. And the game you're looking for.
There it is.
He circled it.
That's it. He circled it. And because he circled it, normally he circled it because what he was doing was saying, this is what I want to get.
Yeah.
And sometimes he would write the name next to the person who would get it for him. So that is telling us that most likely he learned about OXYD from reading Games Magazine when it came, the December 1993 issue. And then that led to you, Dennis O., spending all these hours with him. And to be able to track that back, I think it's remarkable.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and the other funny thing is that The Seventh Guest was a game I recommended to him because I had got it first and was telling him about it and saying it was kind of Myst-like but with ghosts. So he said he was going to look into it, and there he is There's his little circle around the seventh guest in that.
That's right. So you mentioned Myst. Can you tell us more about your relationship with Myst and Stephen Sondheim?
Well, Myst was earlier than OXYD, I believe. It was more like 1990, 91. And I got this excited phone call from him and said, I'm sending you a plane ticket. You've got to get out here right away. There's this game. We're just gonna play it. I'm not even going to tell you what it is. Just get on the plane and get out here. So I flew back there and we played Myst for 5 straight days without ever getting off the main island at all, without going back and forth, listening to sounds, because again, no one had ever even heard of this game. I don't even know how he found out about it. And then finally, the day before I was supposed to leave, we were getting very frustrated, just going through everything again. And then we went into the little library and we turned the dial map, and all of a sudden I heard a sound that I thought, you know what, we didn't really listen to that sound or whatever it was, but this thing says tower rotation. Is there a tower around here somewhere? And sure enough, we went out, we saw that the tower at the top was in a different position. So we ran back in, found our way up there, and there was the code. It broke everything, and then I had to leave the next morning. So he was furious. So he sent me the game and said, put it on your computer. We're just going to do this over the phone. So for days on end, we were just on the phone, on our speaker phones, trying things out at the same time, walking through Myst, and we got through it. And then about maybe 10 months later, suddenly everybody was talking about Myst, and it just took off, and it was all these, op-ed pieces and all over the place. And he called me and he said, what do you think about this? Yeah, and I said, I know it's weird, isn't it? Because it was so personal to just the two of us, and nobody knew of it. And that game is so immersive that it makes you feel like you're really a part of it. And he said, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I like this at all. I don't think I like the fact that these people are walking around our island touching things.
That's great. Our island touching things. I love it.
Dennis, I was just going to ask, did you enjoy the games as much as he did, or was a part of it you wanted to be a good friend to him and you did it, or were you super into it as well?
Oh, God, no, I've always been into games. So it was one of the things that I think cemented our friendship so closely was we just shared that, puzzle. I have, you should see all the, the puzzle books. That's how I relax. I do all kinds of crossword puzzles and things like that. I've always done those. Yeah. And so it was just this camaraderie that we had when we met each other. That was just another thing that made us closer.
Yeah. This is a question for you, Barry, but Dennis, you may have insight into this as well. You write about in the book doing the interviews not long after he had passed. So a lot of the people that you talked to, even though you were talking about fun things like games and puzzles, there was an emotional aspect to the interviews. Can you talk about that, what that was like? There was a few places where I remember just reading it and being like, oh, wow, that's really moving and really special.
Well, thank you. I appreciate hearing that it was moving for you. For me, there's places where I teared up, and I teared up writing it, and there's places I still tear up reading it when I read certain sections in public. There was a charge to the whole time because, as you said, I was talking to people 6 months after he passed away. So somewhere within the 6-month to 18th month period after he passed away, that's when I was asking people to tell me about their relationship with their friend. And I wasn't asking them to talk about what they thought about his music. I was saying, what was it like to play with him? And what they were doing was telling me about how much they loved being with someone, just like you're talking about, Dennis. Like he was like a little kid. They got to see a side of him that most people don't get to see. And that's what they missed. So speaking with someone like Richard Maltby Jr., who was just a few years younger than him, and we're very close friends, both in musical and in puzzle design. And he just said the thing you missed the most about him was how funny he was. And that's what came to mind to him. So chatting with people in this period, it felt like I was like at a Shiva, where it wasn't the part of the Shiva where everyone's crying. It was the part where people are saying, ha ha, remember that time when? And everyone laughs, and they're laughing through the tears. And so I felt very lucky that people were letting me into their hearts during this time for them. And it was a big burden for me to carry those stories and try and figure out how to responsibly and respectfully and ethically share them and weave them into a larger narrative in the story so you can be part of understanding what it meant to have him as a friend.
Yeah, somebody that you interviewed. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say he was an astonishing friend. He was, and we always say that, because we had a 30-year age difference, and we were saying, my God, if we would have been the same age, the fun we could have had doing all of this stuff years ago. And because it was hard for him to actually find friends that liked games the way he did. He didn't have that many.
So Dennis, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
I asked this to people when I interviewed them towards the end of writing my book, because I kind of landed on something that was an insight. It was what the material was telling me. I talked to over 120 people for my book. The large majority, 80 or 90 of them, knew Stephen Sondheim. And the picture that was emerging for me was this. And so I'm sharing this with you to say, does this ring true for you? And if not, how would you modify it? I write in the book that he loved games, designing them, playing them, because it helped him connect with people or create opportunities for people he loved to connect with each other. And he loved puzzles because they were opportunities to create these moments of brilliant clarity, like when, order would form out of chaos, right? Mm-hmm. And what I describe at the end of the book is that, okay, I said that's what he did, but not why. And what I describe is that Sondheim was so brilliant, and his brilliance sometimes kept him separate from other people because they couldn't understand who he was and how to connect with him. And while he wanted to connect with people and wanted to let them in, he needed to put up a barrier. And that the games were the opportunity to connect with people. You're describing this beautiful story of these two friends connecting with each other, but the puzzles would be the test. The puzzles would be a challenge, not to say go away from me, but to say if you want to get close to me, you have to accept my challenge and conquer it. And if you do, you will get the prize. And the prize is an entrance into my heart. And once you're in, you'll be there forever.
Well, he also had a lot of people in his heart that wouldn't know what a crossword puzzle even looked like. There were, his heart was just so open. It was more than just games. Games, I don't think, was the only avenue. I think because games were so special to him, because they were about control and, like you said, order out of chaos, because he grew up in complete chaos, and he loved that feeling of accomplishment. That was very important to him. But there were many, I would say most of his friends weren't into games, not at nearly the level he was. He had friends of all different stripes. I mean, there were a lot of friends that I would think, what the hell does he see in this person? But he adored them, and you would just sort of tolerate them, if you had to be around them very much. Maybe they were saying the same thing about me too, probably. But it's more than it. I think it's more than games.
Yes, absolutely. I don't mean to suggest that was his only way of finding connection with people. I'm just suggesting that was one way. That was one way for him to figure out how to let people into his life. One of many.
Yeah, he was impressed with people that could solve problems. He was very impressed with that. Because I'm going through a lot of the people, and I remember there were many times where we'd be sitting there, like there would even be visitors at the house, and they'd come in and see us and go, oh my God, you're still at it, and turn around and walk away. But the point was to solve, to have the accomplishment, like climbing Mount Everest or something. It was these puzzles were what kept his brain going, which is why he lived as long as he did. Because I swear I didn't think he'd make it to 60, and 92 is 91. I think died at 91 was incredible. It was incredible, and he was still doing puzzles.
I mentioned this to Barry before you came on, Dennis, but I wonder if you have any insights about this. I feel like in the book, he's sort of underplaying his passion for puzzles when he's doing press and things like that, because there are so many people that want the next Sondheim musical that if they're like, you're spending 5 days straight playing Myst, no, get at the piano. What are you doing? You know what I mean? Did you sense that tension of like people wanted work from him, but he had this passion that was taking up his time sometimes?
Not really. I think when you're somebody
good
likes, I think people around you know that you'll get it when you get it.
Exactly. You do what you want.
It's going to come when it comes. Just stop calling. He never really had the only pressure he put on himself was from himself.
Right.
Nobody, I don't think anybody would have ever called and said, is it ready yet? Or, there was, the last two shows, Bounce being turned into, or Wise Guys being turned into Bounce to Roadshow, he was under a lot of pressure to try and get that right and never could, he felt. And then the final show too, the Brunwell piece.
Here we are.
Yeah. He was on the verge of abandoning that many, many times. But then I thought, I wish he would keep doing this because this is what's keeping him alive. You know, because the sense of accomplishment was so important to him that it actually extended his life. Even if the work wasn't good, that was making him even try harder.
Right.
And I kept explaining to him because he was very frustrated that things didn't come the way they used to. And I was telling him that it's because you have covered so much territory because you always want to do something new and fresh. You have to walk so much further out beyond that territory to find the new territory. And that's just going to take you longer. Just take your time. You know, you will do it. Just take what it takes.
Yeah.
And that's when I started realizing, yeah, keep doing it. This is keeping him alive. This is keeping him going. Even if he doesn't work on it for 3 months, he knows it's there and it has to be accomplished. And psychologically, he's not going to let himself go until that show is done, even though, you know, his heart gave out. So,
wow.
In the book, I interview Alexander Gemignani, the son of Paul Gemignani, and Dennis O. He says nearly the same thing. But in that context, he's talking about the last treasure hunt he ever did, which we spoke about earlier in this episode, the 2013 city center hunt. And Alexander's talking about the way he was creating these puzzles to think about designing not just a challenging moment, but a whole experience for people that would last an hour, that's what was keeping him alive.
And he was in his 80s, right? At that time.
83 at that point.
Wow.
Yep.
But still, I mean, as sharp as attack. I mean, I have video of him just a year before he died, walking around the kitchen, feeding the dogs and, you know, and doing all this stuff. And you just look and think, this is not a 90-year-old person. There's no way this is a 90-year-old person. You know,
a year before he died, Mark Halpin, who was Stephen Sondheim's friend, and Mark Halpin was Stephen Sondheim's favorite cryptic crossword constructor. Mark had sent him a crossword puzzle. Stephen Sondheim had received it, and it was a copy that was framed because it was part of an award. And he wrote to Mark and said, "Can you please send me one in print? Because I actually want to do it." Now, Mark knew that Sondheim could do it just by looking at it on the wall.
Right.
But he was like, wow, he was still, you know, at 90, 91, still doing cryptic crosswords. And the previous year, Mark had sent him a crossword that had been printed out for him. And Sondheim wrote him back and said, "I solved the puzzle, but I can't really figure out the meta puzzle. What were you getting at?" And he described the challenge he was having to Mark. And Mark said, "I don't know what you're talking about. There was no meta puzzle." Mark figured out that whoever had printed it out had cut out the first character of everything on the left. Sondheim was still able to solve it, even though a letter was missing for the entire thing. And he was trying to figure out what was the puzzle behind that.
Yeah.
He's 90 years old at that point.
And he made it work. That's amazing.
You know, and that's 90 years old, but that's 85 years of experience doing these things.
Yeah.
I mean, who has that kind of experience?
Yeah.
You know, that's all he lived for. And, you know, and although I think I would disagree with Mark, I don't think he could have done it in his head on the wall. He wasn't that adept at it. Because remember, he used to fly me out quite a bit to help him get through, you know, some of these puzzles and stuff. But, and then he probably just needed the company as well. You know,
Yeah.
think of it.
It was a chance to be together.
And it could get very lonely out there in Roxbury before, you know, he was with Jeff. So,
Yeah. You talk
but
about,
he wasn't, you know, Steve wasn't super genius, you know, he wasn't, and he'd be the first one to admit that he couldn't stand when people called him a genius because all he saw was failures and everything.
yeah,
Like I think I was telling Dennis this story that when we first became friends, when I first moved to New York, he invited me to something was going on with Into the Woods. I think it was the opening of Into the Woods. And he invited me as his guest. And I was sitting up in the room where the desk was while he was changing. And I looked up at the corkboard and there were all of these reviews cut out and thumbtacked, and they were curled up and, you know, just sitting in all these different places. So I started to uncurl them and read them, and they were all trashing him, every single one, saying he doesn't know what he's doing and who does he think he is. You know, every single review was a scathing review. So when he came out, I said, "Why do you keep these up on this bulletin board?" And he said, "Because they're right."
wow.
And I remember taking that to heart, thinking, if he thinks that he's a hack, what the hell are all these other people doing?
Right.
And that I really carried that with me through all the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Knowing that, you don't rest on your laurels. You don't wait to be pat on the head. Yeah. I know that's a little digression away from the games, but so he wasn't, and he's right. He wasn't what people were claiming he was. He wasn't super genius. He just had a lot of experience and a lifetime experience and hanging around with incredibly brilliant people. You can't help but pick that up and become not only one of them, but surpass them in so many ways too.
If we can go back to Into the Woods for one moment and go back to games, in the early 90s, Stephen Sondheim started exploring making an educational CD-ROM game connected to Into the Woods. I wonder if that was something that you had ever had an opportunity to discuss with him, or if he ever brought it up.
I don't remember that, no. That must have been after Into the Woods was running, or it must have been later.
That's right. It was later.
I don't think
the movie.
I don't remember him talking about anything like that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, because you write about that in the book. You mentioned his relationship with Jeff, his partner, and you talk about how the tone of the game nights kind of mellowed out once he got into that relationship, or maybe just getting older. Can you talk about how competitive he was and how that may have changed over time?
Sure.
Barry, and then Dennis, you can chime in if you have thoughts about it.
Dennis, so let me know what you think about this analysis. So when you look at the games he was playing in the 1960s, just the titles, the names of the games were called Hostilities, The Murder Game, Cutthroat Anagrams. They were pretty challenging games emotionally, and they were really competitive. I interviewed people who were playing these games with him in the 90s and the noughts and even the teens, the word that came up most often was generous. As a player, as a designer. And that, for me, traced an arc in his life in broad strokes of looking at how the games he played and the games he designed reflected his change over his life, from someone who had a lot of demons to had processed a lot of them and could now be more generous with others.
Oh, he was generous was one of the foremost aspects of his personality. I mean, he was generous with everything. Everything. I mean, if he's going to, just send plane tickets out to people, I mean, generosity was, I think, a major, major chord in everything, every aspect of his life.
Yeah.
So that doesn't surprise me at all.
There's one person quoted in your book, Barry, who said that he has the youngest energy of anyone in the room. So when he's playing these games or leading these games, he has that childlike quality. It's
funny because I haven't had a chance to go back and look at the old videos, but I have a lot of old videos from that time. And he is animated and hopping around, and everybody else is just sort of trying to keep up with him. But when he's telling a story and he's laughing and he's just, so much energy. So he was very, very energetic. Always, never, even, sitting down and talking, he'll be working one of those metal puzzles, when he's in the middle of a conversation, when you're just chatting for the afternoon.
That's right.
He just never stopped. Never, ever stopped.
And that was Jonathan Mark Sherman, the playwright, who said that, Dennis H. And like you, Dennis O., many decades his junior, and yet was able to connect because, as you just described, that youthful energy would come out.
Yeah, he was ageless.
Thank you for doing the Dennis H. Dennis O. thing. You're nailing that. It's a lot. You write about a few appearances that Stephen Sondheim did on game shows, and you write about this password game, and you write about this aura he had where he knew he was really good. He knew he was competitive, but he was trying to act like it was just a delightful night. Like, he was trying to underplay A, how good he was at this stuff, and B, how much he wanted to win or how well he wanted to do, which it tickled me to know that he's trying to not seem as good as he is, right?
Yeah, he's the smartest guy in the room, but he's not acting like he knows it.
Right.
He's not rubbing it in anyone's face, but he is still going to win. Because he's on this show with Lee Remick, who he loved and adored, who had invited him on to be, someone goes on the show and then they get to bring their friends. Like, I think Lee Remick's mother maybe was on before, Stephen Sondheim. So it's Stephen Sondheim's turn to help Lee. And he's going to do everything he can. And if anyone gets in his way, he's not going to be happy. And one of the things I love about this moment, this was Christmas, December 25th, 1966. He starts asking the question, but through some technicality, the host stops him. And once the host stops him, he just deflates. He's like, who the hell are you? He doesn't say anything like that, but you can see it in his face. His entire body language changes. And then the host explains what the rule was that he broke, one that was never really explained, and says, go on again. This is like live television, recorded television. It's not going to be edited. And Sondheim doesn't start. He's like, are you serious? You want me to do it again? And then the host says, go on, do it again. And then so Sondheim kind of like disgruntled starts again. But before long, they're in such a groove, him and Lee Remick, and they solve it beautifully. And then they're laughing again, and they're looking at each other. And watching the two of them connect through gameplay live in the television show is amazing. And anyone can watch it. It's all on YouTube. Just look for Password, Stephen Sondheim, and you can watch the entire appearance. It's remarkable.
I love to see that.
He was also very humble.
Yeah.
He was extremely humble, too.
Yeah.
Which is very disconcerting because you think that there's going to be all this, grandiosity. And I mean, I guess it's a little bit different. I mean, because when we became friends, he hadn't reached iconic status yet. This was, pre Into the Woods. So it was just starting. And I saw a big difference, but he always stayed humble.
Yeah. You met him
in this Password.
Oh, I was just going to say, you met him at a time when you were only as good as your last hit, right? So it was kind of like a wave, as opposed to now there's that body of work and he's iconic, clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he has suffered, just a couple of years before that, he had suffered through the failure of Merrily We Roll Along. Yeah. And then the critical triumph of Sunny in the Park with George had just happened. So, and in fact, I think he just won the Pulitzer right when we met. But it was also, he was losing a lot of friends from AIDS at that time. It was a very dark period. But the thing that always astounded me was how instantly comfortable you feel around him and how genuine. He's one of those people that when he asks you a question, he listens and is not, waiting for the next thing to say. He's listening to everything you say, which makes him so smart,
Oh, and he's known for being a good mentor to other writers and to probably people like you.
Well, yeah, he was my mentor for 35 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, because, again, he wanted to be a teacher, but yet he waited also until he found the right people that he could invest that in. So that's why there weren't a lot of he didn't go to colleges, to teach colleges and stuff like that. He would find us through other friends and see if we had a kind of a mind that he liked, and then go from there. And if we did, especially with puzzles, then I would never have the life I have now if it wasn't for him. I owe him everything.
Oh, that's beautiful. Dennis is a huge fan of The Last of Sheila, the movie, and Barry, you write about that in the book. What was one of the surprising things you found out about that movie? Because they did like puzzle promotional things and like, what's some fun
so much.
Last of Sheila stuff?
So much. Well, let's see. I tell people, I spent a few years researching the book. The book came out, but the research never ends.
Right.
It never ends. Just last week, someone gave me an unripped ticket to The Last of Sheila from 1973 from Japan.
Wow.
Super fun. But part of what was I got from Last of Sheila this summer is the press book. The press book is the thing that you would get, like if you were in media, that would tell you this is, some copy you can put in your review. Here are some photographs you can use. Here's the promotion that's selling the car you can use. But this one was super over the top. It was not only multiple pages about the movie, it also had kind of like a pretend broadsheet that you would pull out, like the newspaper you would read on the train. And it had all these fake articles about the production, but it also included all of these puzzles and games. One of them is a connect the dot, and the connect the dot you're doing is the chalk drawing of Sheila, who's killed in the first scene of the movie, and it says you can draw your own conclusion. Right?
Right.
But the other thing in that broadsheet is an original Al Hirschfeld. It is the cast of The Last of Sheila, and for those who know Al Hirschfeld, he would often include his daughter's name Nina in the illustration, and often many of her names. And you could look next to his signature at the bottom and it would say how many Ninas were in, like 1 or 2 or 3. Well, this one had 2 plus 1. What's the plus 1?
Yeah.
There are 2 Ninas and 1 Sheila.
Right on. I like it. It's a puzzle within a puzzle. Yeah.
And he had that Hirschfeld in his writing room at the Roxbury House, the original.
Yeah.
That's how much it meant to him. And even though he would often talk about the movie like, it was a flop and why would anyone appreciate it? As you mentioned, Dennis, so he had that illustration of Al Hirschfeld's Last of Sheila on his wall.
Well, that's actually how we became friends, because my friend, I saw that movie when I was a kid 50 times. It was playing at the neighborhood place I would go to so I could avoid going home. And so I just would watch whatever movie was there for the whole week. It would be there, sometimes twice a day, every day. And that one came in. I remember thinking, The Last of Sheila, this sounded like a romantic movie or something. But I thought, I'll see it anyway. And it blew me away. And it was the first time at the credits at the beginning, it said written by Tony Perkins and Steve Sondheim. And I thought, this was written by somebody. When I saw it the second time, I thought, somebody wrote this, and it made me want to write. And that was when I was a kid. So years later, when my friend Tom Fitzsimmons had introduced us through a letter, I got a letter from him and said, Tom tells me you're a writer and blah, blah, on and on. If you're ever interested, you need some advice, let me know. So I wrote him a letter back, and it was all about The Last of Sheila. I mean, because that movie had meant so much to me as a kid. And puzzles, again, it just changed my life. And that's what started our correspondence, because he said, I can't believe you have picked things out of that movie that no one has ever been able to figure out. And you can't watch a movie 100 times and not, get everything from it. But that's how we struck up that friendship. And then he suggested I move to New York, and he would get me involved in the ASCAP workshop and things like that, which he did.
Amazing.
That's how we became lifelong friends.
Yeah.
The Last of Sheila. I have to thank to that.
The Last of Sheila became the first of your relationship with Sondheim.
I like it.
And I have every draft. There are, I think, 10 drafts. I have every single one of those drafts upstairs in my closet of that movie, from the first draft to the revision, to the revision, to the third revision, the fourth revision. I have every single thing. And it's amazing what that original draft was compared to what the film is.
Wow. Can I show you something else, Dennis O? I wasn't planning to show this.
Yay, I love a show and tell.
Insight on it.
Yeah.
So, all right. So everyone who loves Sondheim knows that the Library of Congress this summer, 2025, finally received the items that had been willed from Stephen Sondheim to the library after he passed away. And I think it was about August, we started hearing some of the amazing, remarkable items that they were finding as they were going through and curating the items. So I'm going to pull up something for you guys to see that was shared with me. Last is Sheila. And what this is, let me just share you my screen, and we'll describe this to people who are listening.
That's right.
These are notes that they found. Now, it doesn't come with any description, so we don't know exactly what it is, but it looks like, what is it, like grid paper?
Right.
Yeah,
it kind of looks like the board of Clue, but 2 rows instead of 3.
And so what's in the upper right-hand corner?
Richard Benjamin.
Yeah.
And so the next frame, if this was a storyboard, says...
Oh, Diane Cannon is in there.
But Diane Cannon is written over Richard Benjamin.
Yeah.
Right? It's as if Richard Benjamin's name fades out, but the letters in Richard and Benjamin become part
That's amazing.
And then James Coburn comes in as Diane Cannon fades away.
3 of them.
And so as you go through these, you see he is playing with somehow creating some kind of visual crossword puzzle.
Yeah.
With the names, and then leaving some answers at the end as if there's another puzzle. And what I have to share with you here is a video that was made when I shared this with some puzzle designers to help me figure out what was this. And so you're watching here the video of what it might have looked like if he was designing this to be the opening credits.
That's what I thought of when I saw, I thought, oh, maybe that's the opening credits.
And so that moves through. But then when we get to the last frame, what we see is the letters that are left. And those letters that are left are the ones that you see here.
Okay.
As if there's a puzzle. Every box has either a line on top of the letter or it doesn't.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
I don't know.
HTR.
He just left us so many mysteries.
He left
still to be solved.
I know. Let's spend the weekend trying to figure it out.
Well, it's got
to be tickets.
Yeah.
It's got to be an anagram.
Yeah.
So some folks tried to anagrammatize it, and here are 2 of them The Unsenile Brain was one.
Oh, wow.
Which doesn't. Another was Sheila Rain, Rein, Unbent. None of which actually makes sense.
Right. All right. So this is stuff you've posted on your Instagram for the book that people are interacting with. See, I love that. I love that it just kind of keeps people guessing and engaged. That's really cool. And I like his handwriting, his printing. It's good. It's like architecture printing. Barry, in the book, you often describe his friends that will play as playmates. Was that like a term that he would use? Like, these are my playmates, that meaning that they would play games with him?
Oh, that's a great question. So the bulk of the book, about 250 pages, is almost like a ludological biography. Yeah. Ludology, it's the study of play. So I'm choosing the lens of play to look at Stephen Sondheim's life and the things he produced creatively. And so at the beginning of each of these chapters, I have a cast of characters. And so I'm looking at the chapter 1. It says Oscar Hammerstein 2, surrogate father and playmate. Mary Rogers, composer, playmate. John Wyman, collaborator, playmate. What I want to do is explain these people whose names you might know, but reframe them in the lens I'm using, which is someone he played with.
Right.
Marion Madden, fellow puzzle designer. Right. And so that's what I'm trying to get at. I want to reshift our expectations about who Stephen Sondheim is, what he produced, and the relationships in his life that we might not actually know about from this perspective.
Right. But it enriches those relationships to know that he played games with them. And so that was something you came up with. I just have a couple more questions. But Dennis, I just want to ask you, what was it like to think about your friend and this part of his life?
It was just so much of his life. I mean, it was his life. It was, I don't know what I can't disassociate the two, games and Steve.
Yeah.
I mean, when I think of Steve, I think of games. That's all, it's more even so than the musicals, because when we met, I wasn't all that familiar with his shows. I had never even heard, half of them. So, but I just knew that he was brilliant and I know he was great, but, the games was a whole big surprise to me. And that's what really bonded us, the game and writing.
Yeah.
And in fact, I was just going to show you, I just found this a month ago.
More surprises.
It's this little envelope. Sometimes I would just get things in the mail. It'd be a box and there was a little envelope in it, and I opened it and it's all these puzzle pieces of, I don't even know what the pictures, I haven't put it together. Oh wait, it says right here, something wagon, but it was all these little puzzle pieces. And so I did the puzzle, but then when you turn it over, they were every puzzle piece had a letter from his name, on it. So that when I realized I could have just put the puzzle together that way instead of the picture, it would have been much easier. But I put
you did it upside down. Yeah.
I never even, no, because everybody does puzzles by the picture.
Yeah.
But that's what but he would do little twists like that.
Yeah.
And just send them off in the mail. And then I remember because for his 88th birthday, I made a little mystery puzzle box that you had to unlock, and I sent it to him, and he could not open it he couldn't figure it out at all.
You had to fly out?
No, I didn't have to fly out, but he kept calling me, give me another clue, give me another clue. And I'd say the numbers, because there was a code of numbers you had to put in.
Yeah.
They're right there in the inscription. They're right in front of your face.
Yeah.
So he'd look at it and I said, read me the inscription. So he'd read the inscription. I would say, you didn't hear that? Okay. I think I did hear it. And then he'd hang up. And then a week later, I can't get it. I don't know. I don't know what it is. But look at the inscription. It's right there. And he couldn't do it for the longest time. And he finally did by me sort of nudging him enough, closer to it.
Yeah.
But he obsessed on it and obsessed on it because he was going to figure it out without taking a hammer to it and opening it that way. Because there were coins in it. There was a quarter, a dime, a nickel, and a penny, all from 1930 in it.
Wow, nice.
So, but then he got back at me because when he opened it, he called and he said, just want to say I got it. Everything's fine. And it was great that what you had in there, because my housekeeper was here and she bought some supplies and she needed some change for the dollar, and it was just the amount that you had put in there. So it was, the quarter of the dime. And so I gave it to her and I went, oh! I mean, he knew he was he knew he had not done that.
Yeah.
But he made me think that he just gave that change away.
That he didn't notice. That's so wild. Yeah.
Yeah, I just started laughing. But so it doesn't surprise me that Barry wrote a book about his games. I mean, I always thought somebody would at some point because it was so much of who he was.
Well, can I ask you, as someone who has known him for so long and experienced him as both a creative mentor and a puzzle gameplay mate, people have said to me, why didn't this book come out earlier? Do you have a sense of why we didn't see this in the 90s or the noughts or the teens?
You just weren't ready to write it yet.
It was waiting for you. You were the person to do it.
It was meant for you to write. I mean, it's
shucks.
Yeah.
No, I'm serious. You were the one to come along and do it.
Thank
you. Again, I think a majority of his friends just would roll their eyes when they would talk about his games. They
didn't get it.
His little fascination.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there was a handful of people that were into it as much as he was.
You write
so now
about
that my book is out.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, Dennis H. Now that the book, Dennis H, you go.
Okay,
sorry.
I'm going to do a little thing. Reading this book and thinking about how much he liked this stuff, I was like, he would love escape rooms. He missed that craze, but he didn't actually, because you write in the book that he did some, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, Dennis O, do you want to talk about what you know about that?
Well,
because stuff from the book.
Yeah, because I was there were two things I was trying to talk to him about: the escape rooms and VR.
Oh, right.
And, so he was dismissive of both those ideas. I think Jeff finally got him to go to a game room, and his attitude was, it was. I think he would have loved it if he would have been there alone doing it, but when you're doing it with groups, that probably annoyed him a little bit.
Interesting.
He wasn't impressed. He wasn't impressed with them. He said they were all very easy to figure out. So I was trying to get him to do a VR because there was somebody had done OXYD as a VR 3D game.
Wow.
So you're walking around in the marbles and the laser beams and all of that. And I can't remember what the name of that game was off the top of my head. But I was trying to get him to do VR in that, but he just wasn't excited about that either.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So Dennis, I write a lot about Stephen Sondheim and escape rooms in the book, and I have a very different narrative to tell. I spoke with a number of people who went to escape rooms with him. I spoke with people whose escape rooms Stephen Sondheim went to, and Andrew Parr, who we listened to earlier, who I mentioned was connected to Games Magazine, he interviewed Stephen Sondheim. It was the last interview about Stephen Sondheim talking about his games and puzzles that came out the year he passed away. And in it, he talked about escape rooms. And he talked about how much he loved them, how it was something he would try and get all his friends to go to, how whoever developed escape rooms, it was a swell idea, and how fun it was to try and figure out with each other. Push here on the wall. No, push over there. And hearing from the people who went with him, like Sherm, what is Sherman's last name? Jonathan Mark Sherman, about, he's in his mid-80s at this point, but when there's an option to either walk around the corner this way or crawl through the tunnel, he was down on his hands and knees crawling through that tunnel and having so much fun with a grin on his face. And in fact, one of the escape rooms used a puzzle that he had created with Anthony Perkins in 1968 in one of his treasure hunts. They didn't know Stephen Sondheim was going to come someday, but in honor to the work that Stephen Sondheim had done with treasure hunts, they incorporated it in. And there was Stephen Sondheim now encountering his own puzzle being used, what was that, like 50 years later? And that just brought him so much joy.
Yeah. Well, I will say that there is an attitude to take for public consumption. And of course, Steve is the last person to piss on anyone's parade at all. So if he is going to be interviewed about game rooms, the last thing he wants to say is, they're not, how he had told me.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Because he's not going to want to burst anybody's bubble, or, he's going to want to keep that going.
He's a cheerleader for other creatives.
Always,
find that.
Always.
And I think that's beautiful. A lot of people that are as acclaimed to him aren't that way. And he is. He's always like a cheerleader for different people.
He also knows how much his words weigh.
Yeah.
In the public sphere too.
Right.
That when he was getting all this notoriety, he knew he had to watch what he said.
Yeah.
like as an example, when there was a terrible revival of Guys and Dolls with Nathan Lane and Jerry Zaks had directed it,
right?
And it just was. There was just no point to it.
Yeah.
So he had me come out there, and he wanted me to go with him. And we went to opening night, and the whole time in the intermission, we went across the street, and he was going, "Oh my God, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? They're all going to be asking me, what am I going to say? What do I say?" Because he just hated it, So we went to the second act, and then when it was over, Jerry's act came over, and everybody was coming up to him. And he found the most amazing things to say. They weren't opposite of what he felt, but he found the words to say. I remember one of the things was, "My God, Jerry, did you hear that applause? My God, they just wouldn't stop applauding." And Jerry was just beaming and just lightening up. And I thought, here's another thing. Here's another lesson.
Yeah.
That I'm glad to see, that I'm glad to witness. Right. Because he knew what to do. The important thing was to puff them up. And then I was asking him about that afterwards, and he said, when it's in rehearsal or in production, give all the advice, the honest advice you have. When it opens, keep your mouth shut and praise it. That's the only thing you can do. Yeah. Because there's nothing you could say is just going to ruin everybody and ruin friendships. So just after it's open, just keep your mouth shut.
Well, and he knew what it was like to be on the other end of that, because he had endured his own share of those kinds of, criticisms throughout. So,
well, no, not really. I think I'm sorry, Barry, I'm taking up your whole hour.
No, this is interesting. I love this. We did a big chunk before you even showed up. So,
well, this is, pertinent to what you were just saying. When I first met him in person, he had left me a ticket to see Sunday in the Park with George. And it was, I think, the last night, and I had just flown into New York that day. I went and saw it. I loved it, of course, but I didn't call him for 2 weeks because I thought, he's not going to want to be bothered with me. But after two weeks in New York, I was so lonely that I called him, and he was panicked because he thought I hated the show. I never wanted to see him. I never wanted to meet with him. And I just didn't know what to say, and all that other stuff. So I said, no, I just thought you'd be too busy. And he said, no, I've been waiting for you. I called the box office. You picked up the ticket. I didn't know how to reach you. I was just panicking. Why don't you come over? What are you doing right now? And I said, well, nothing. He said, come over. We'll have a drink and we'll talk about it. So I thought, oh God, okay, here it comes. So I went in, we sat down, and we got in the biggest fight about Sunday Park with George, because I was talking about how amazing it was. And then I said, but I think I would have started with the second act. And then out of frustration of what he was going through, that's how he learns his lesson through his grandfather. A thread like that. I thought that might work a little bit more thematically for me. And he poo-pooed it. And I was trying to explain to him, no, but I think it would be great because the song Sunday should be the finale of the show because you never recover from that. And so the whole second act, you're just trying to get up to that moment again. You never quite do. If they were reversed, it just seemed to me, I was going on, and he kept fighting. And then I finally thought, what the hell am I doing? Shut up.
Yeah. There's a Pulitzer over there.
Who do I think I am? I'm some stupid idiot from Garden Grove.
Right.
So I just sat there, I just shut up and was listening to him. And he kept going and kept going and kept going. Finally wound down and he said, what's the matter? Why'd you stop talking? And so I realized what an idiot I must sound like. And he went, oh my God, don't you know how hard it is to find somebody with an opinion?
That's interesting.
He said, that's why. He said, you're right. That would have worked brilliantly. We never even thought of that. It never occurred to us to do that. That would have been brilliant. And you're right. That moment is the moment of the show. You're right. We never thought of it. It never crossed our minds. That's why I'm arguing with you, because I'm trying to get around it. I'm trying to get out of it, but it's there. So I don't think he faced a lot of criticism from a lot of people.
Right.
So, and again, games and that moment, when I was sticking up for my point, that really impressed him. And he probably thought,
this guy's a keeper. Yeah.
Yeah. What is, so, and then and all through these 35 years, whenever he was working on anything or offered anything, he'd send it to me and want my opinion. Because he knew that I would be honest with him and I wouldn't lie to him. And very few people would do that.
Right. Interesting.
And there were many instances
Yeah.
where, he was doing something and everybody was telling him how brilliant. And he'd either fly me out there to come see it or he'd fly out here to come see it. And he'd say, I want to sit with you and I want you to tell me, many times throughout those years because he knew I'd be honest.
Yeah.
And so I don't think there are a lot of people that were.
Right.
I mean, there was Al, of course.
And also when he didn't get good reviews, like you talked about with Merrily We Roll Along and how he held on to all the bad reviews that he got.
Into the Woods.
Yeah.
And Merrily We Roll Along, I mean, his work was the most important part of that piece. I mean, it saved it from being, incredibly unwatchable.
Yeah.
And without that music, that thing would be excruciating. Yeah. And George Firth was, who wrote Merrily We Roll Along, and he wrote, oh God, here comes another anecdote. I guess if I'm saying too much, just
no, it's okay. It's okay. I have another podcast at 4, but we're okay. We're okay.
Well, I'll try and say this is another aspect of how interesting that man is. They were doing The Doctor Is Out, and it was being done in San Diego, and they were working on it, doing all the stuff, and Steve left very happy because it was all in great order. Everybody was saying how brilliant it was, and it was going to just go right to Broadway and all this other stuff. So they were already lining up investors. Well, he got home and the reviews were scathing. So he called me and he said, I want you to go down there and I want you to watch it and tell me what's wrong with it. So I did. It was terrible. I came back and I told him all these problems. He hung up on me. Then he called 5 minutes later, pick me up at the airport at 5:00. I'm coming in there. We're going to go down and watch it together. And you're going to defend everything you said. All right, bring it. So I picked him up from the airport. We drove down there. 5 minutes into it, he dug his hand into my thigh and just kept going, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Oh, I'm so sorry. How could I have doubted you? God, oh my God, it's terrible. Oh my God. And so afterwards we stopped at a coffee shop in the middle of Oceanside with nobody around except a family, a husband and wife and about 3 kids sitting at one table. It was just some motel. And he was just panicking because it was going to go to Broadway and he knew he was going to get blamed for everything. And he really didn't have that much to do with it. But I said, I think the problem was that you kept seeing the improvements. And when you left, everybody was saying how good it was that you were comfortable, that it was going to be fine. But now that you've had distance and seen it, you know what it is. And then in the middle of that conversation, because he was just completely distraught, the father from that table, in the middle of Oceanside, in the middle of nowhere, walked over to our table and he said, excuse me, are you Steve Sondheim? Are you Stephen Sondheim? And Steve looked up at him, through his tears and yeah. And he said, can I just tell you how much your work has meant to my family and I? I just want to thank you. I don't want to interrupt you, but just keep doing that. You've meant so much to us. And it completely turned him around. Just this stranger.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Nowhere.
Dennis, so
it did go to Broadway and bomb, and he did get blamed for it. So.
There you go.
Dennis, so I have a question for you, and I don't know if you have an answer. I have heard that in connection with the play you're talking about, Getting Away with Murder, that there was a murder mystery party designed called Murder in Room 1213. I've learned nothing else except for what I just told you. Were you aware of anything like that at the time?
Not. I know that he was doing a lot of those things. When I moved from New York, he would call me with updates about these parties and stuff. I'd always wanted to go to one, but I was never able to make it out for one. Okay. And so it just may have been one of those ones that he was planning.
I heard it was a murder mystery party where one of the guests has killed their psychiatrist, which of course is similar to the plot.
That's the play, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Dennis, any other thoughts you have on this topic or what this experience has been like or anything you want to share before we wrap it up?
No, I'm just thrilled to meet Barry and thrilled that he wrote this book because it was such a part of my life. And I'm just so I can't wait to finish it. It's just such a great book. And I do have a picture of Steve playing Oxyd that I'm going to send you.
Barry's face was like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
On his little laptop over his shoulder, he was playing Oxyd.
Yeah.
And I just thought, so I have kept that for a long time.
And with your permission, Dennis, I'll put that on the Instagram feed, which is Matching Minds with Sondheim, where I post all the amazing things that people send me. And that's where I'm the best place to connect with as well if you want to talk with me online.
I love it.
You can also go to my website and access some of his puzzles.
Oh, cool.
When I get stuff that I can share, I put it there as well.
All right.
Oh, great.
Thank you both.
I'd like to make a little point about that book too, is usually I've not really talked a lot about Steve in my life. I've usually just kept that, private, but this book has made me think about him and sort of brought him back to life again. That's why, when I found that little puzzle thing again. And it's, when Dennis asked me to do this, I thought, yeah, I think I am ready to, because when Merle Secrest did the book, and people ask all the time, I never talk to anybody, but this talking about games and Steve's game, I thought this might be fun. This might be a time to start talking about him again. Yeah. After so long. So I'm grateful for that too, because it's, he's back.
When you showed that little envelope with the things, they're acts of love creating these puzzles. They're acts of love.
Oh yeah.
And that comes through in the detail and the intricacy. He did that because he loves you.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. All right. I was like, this is an hour and a half and I haven't cried yet. What's going on with this podcast? But I kind of did. You guys, thank you so much. This has been a real treat. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. Both Dennises. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Very great to meet you.
Thanks again to Barry Joseph and Dennis Osborne. Pick up Barry's book, Matching Minds with Sondheim. That was so special, that conversation. Oh, and here's something I didn't mention at the front, which I'm going to mention now. So Dennis, after our conversation, Dennis shared a couple of photos of Stephen Sondheim playing games with Barry. And Barry posted it on his Instagram. He did a little lovely post about the conversation and the photos. And he emailed me and said, look, it's already gotten such and such of so many reposts or whatever. So many people shared it or liked it. Or anyway, it was doing well on social media. I don't know the words, right? Anyway, and he goes, well, that's probably because who shared it? And who shared it was Lin-Manuel Miranda. Perhaps you've heard of him. So basically, I'm friends with Lin-Manuel Miranda now. I think that's what that means. So there you go. I just think that's really cool. And it was just an example of like, how when you try to bring people together and something comes together, it can kind of lead to more. You just never know when you're putting something out there. All right. So this happened. My dear friend Nora Burns was in town. She was a guest on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. She did this show called Candid Camera here at Casita del Campo, where so many of my friends have performed over the years. And she asked me to be one of her aging go-go boys. And it was an immediate yes, because the world's ending anyway. Why not do it? And so me and a gentleman named Pip Lilly was her other backup dancer, her other go-go boy. And I know Pip from around. I actually interviewed him on the podcast a number of years ago he was doing this Michael Jackson puppet show with Danielle Gaither. And I talked to them about it. And I remember it was one of the last interviews I did before the pandemic. Anyway, Pip and I were her backup dancers. The premise is Nora, in real life, hosted a public access show called Candid Camera in the 90s in New York. It was that era when Robin Bird was doing a show and there was nudity and you could get away with anything on public access. So she did this irreverent, queer show, and she thought the tapes were lost forever. Turns out NYU had them in their library, a bunch of them anyway, and she got the tapes and created a stage show around it, sort of like a look back at this show, and there were sketches in between and really great clip packages. And she has a director named Adam who's wonderful that she works with and put a lot of video stuff together, and it was really fun. So there are live bits interspersed with these, clips from the show, and there were two big numbers, and so we learned the numbers and we danced, and they were kind of intense workouts. I remember coming off stage after the opening number and just like I was just giving it everything, because why not? The world's ending. Go for it. So I walked off and I could hear Nora get on a mic and start talking. And I thought, if I had to get on a microphone right now and start talking, I was so out of breath. I had to almost lay down. It was, but we did it. And some friends came out and saw it, and it was just a good time. And here's one of my favorite moments. She's friendly with Michael Patrick King, the creator of And Just Like That and Sex and the City, like a big showrunner along with Darren Star. And anyway, there's a bit in the show where Nora has Julie Halston pop up on video, and Julie Halston appears occasionally as a recurring character on And Just Like That and Sex and the City. So Julie's kind of dismissive of her in this video conversation that they did. So Nora's like, well, I hope And Just Like That doesn't get renewed or whatever. She kind of makes a snide comment afterwards because Julie kind of blows her off. And Nora didn't realize Michael Patrick King was in the audience. But I told her later, I said, the joke wasn't that pointed. It was just like you being petty about Julia Halston. So I wouldn't worry. But anyway, that was a fun little moment. I was like, oh my God, there he is. What else is happening? I don't know, man. I'm seeing a lot of things. I'm keeping busy. I'm going to my classes. I'm trying to make sure I have a very fun, rich, fulfilling, creative life that means a lot. And my stack of bills is it's no joke. I don't know, man. What's happening? The gap, the juxtaposition of these two parts of life. Anyway, what are you going to do? You just keep going, keep trying, keep shining. What's that song, Keep Shining, the Dionne Warwick one? I'm going to leave it there. All right, I want to give a shout-out to Oscar Rosario for mixing the episodes. My theme music is by Mark Daniels for placement music. We'll catch you next time on Dennis Anyone. Bye!